Hi everybody, it's George Whittam reporting for Whittam's World. Well, I'm in my new location, a new place I'll be working from, and I'm very happy about the amount of space I have to work with here. It's also a quieter place, so I'm going to experiment using a lavalier microphone. You know who you are. One of you guys asked about using lavalier mics for voiceover, and I will be talking about that on a future episode. So if it sounds different, that's why. Trying the lav. I'm going to be doing demonstrations in this room where I can work hands-free, so I can't have a microphone or a boom or anything in the way. So I'm going to be trying more lab stuff, and that's going to be including doing a demonstration of acoustical treatment. I'm going to do like the ultimate portable acoustical treatment product shootout on a future Whittam's World, so don't miss that. But this time, just to kick things off, I got probably a simple question, but this one comes from Rob Naughton. And he says, "Hey George, more and more now I'm recording all my sessions and posting the audio, as opposed to probably ISDN. As this gets more frequent with these large AIFF audio files, I'm wondering, do some of the VO talent compress this audio so that it can be uploaded faster, or is that not acceptable quality? Are there any accepted forms of AIFF compression to zip this audio for faster upload?" And he sends a second part. And he says, the real question is, can you zip these AIFF files to make them smaller for upload? But then when unzipped on the other end, no loss of sound quality. Is it common to do this, or does everyone just upload these huge AIFF files? That's a good question. Something we haven't really addressed on the show is audio and data compression. So when we talk about compression in the terms of reducing file size, there's two basic forms of compression: lossy and non-lossy. Okay, the differences basically mean that if it's lossy compression, there is a loss of audio quality. Now, it may not be an audible loss of quality. It could be that it's not detectable of a loss in quality, but there is some form of a loss of audio quality in the process of shrinking the audio down into a smaller size that can be sent over the internet or streamed, that kind of thing. The most common codec by far, and these are called codecs, code, decode. The most common one is called MP3. You've probably all heard of MP3. The whole idea of MP3 is to take the audio and reduce it in size to the smallest size possible, such that it can be sent and streamed, but without loss of audible quality. It has adjustable variables that allow you to control how much compression versus how much audio quality you're left with. I find that when you're recording and storing an MP3 in mono, 128 kilobits per second works beautifully. Stereo, you need to double that at 256. Anything above that, you don't really hear much of a difference anymore. 192 kbps is what, for example, ACX recommends their audiobook narrators to upload. So that might be the highest you'd ever go for an MP3 mono file. So the file can be reduced quite a bit in size if encoded to MP3, but Rob's still concerned that there's going to be some loss in quality because it is a lossy codec. So what other options are there? Well, if you take an AIFF audio file and zip that file, it doesn't really get any smaller. Audio data has very little in it that can be data compressed in a form that would not lose audio quality. So if I were to take an AIFF file and compress it as a zip file, let's see if there's any change in size. Here's one that's a 2.9 megabyte AIFF. Let's go ahead and compress that to a zip file. Let's see if it gets smaller. Does it get smaller? Well, the original was 2.9 megabytes. The aftermath, or the resulting zip file, is actually a good deal smaller. It's 1.7 megabytes. So actually you can get a AIFF file to shrink by a factor of, looks to me by doing the math, about 35%. So you can get it 35% smaller or 65% its original size by zipping. Will every AIFF zip the same way? I'm not exactly sure, but it does get a little bit smaller. So 35%? Is it worth the extra step of zipping it and then convincing your clients that they need to unzip everything on their end? It could be. That 35% will speed things up. But there's sort of an intermediate step between AIFF and MP3 that gives you a little more compression. That's called FLAC. F-L-A-C. And FLAC is a compression codec that does compress quite a bit more than a zip file. And I don't know why FLAC hasn't caught on in the business yet, but let's try saving a file. Let's try saving that save AIFF file in Twisted Wave as a FLAC. So I'll go to File, FLAC Audio, Settings, Compression Level 5. I don't know enough about FLAC Audio to know there's a better quality or compression level. Obviously 0 fastest, 8 highest. Let's try 8 highest. Let's see how much it can compress the data. All right, so now we're going to save as a FLAC. All right, now that we've saved as a FLAC, how much smaller is the original file? Now keep in mind, FLACs have no loss in audio quality. None. This is not a non-lossy codec. As we can see, the FLAC file comes out at 889 kilobytes. So there you go. It actually gets quite a bit smaller. It gets almost exactly the same size as this commercial file that's in an MP3 format. Same exact length of audio, but this one is at 860 kilobytes. And that's a MP3 mono 128 file. So 128 MP3 mono, which is a lossy format, although very hard to hear the difference, and FLAC, which is a non-lossy compression codec, is about the same size. So when you're looking at FLAC at 889 kilobytes and the original was 3000, let's use two values that will work together. Let's take 860 divided by 2900. 60% reduction. 60% reduction, actually. No, 70% reduction. Sorry, I need to learn to do better math. So you can get 70% smaller size using a FLAC and about 35% smaller size using zip. So there's all these different solutions. At the end of the day, it comes down to your client's workflow. If they don't know what to do with the FLAC file when you send it to them, chances are they're not going to. They're going to probably complain. So if you really want to send files smaller and faster and keep that original format in a format that everybody can easily open and use, probably stick with zip files. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate your time. We'll be back next week with a regular Whittam's World episode. And if you'd like to have your question answered on a future Whittam's World, send it in to whittamsworld@edgestudio.com. And if you want to know anything about the tech side of our company, all the tech support stuff that I do, my famous racks and stacks, which we're promoting right now for $45 a piece, normally $75, go over to vostudiotech.com. Thanks a lot for watching. This has been George Whittam reporting for Whittam's World. See you next time.